We're coming on the air with breaking news. It appears the House of Representatives just voted to do something it has only done 5 other times in its history. Now, we are still waiting on the final gavel, but it does appear the House has voted to expel one of its own members. More than 2/3 of the House has voted so far to vote Congressman George Santos out. It comes just weeks after a bombshell report from the House Ethics Committee found that Santos, a Republican from New York, allegedly used campaign funds to pay for personal expenses, including his rent, trips, Botox, and a subscription for an adult website. Now, the saga is far from over. He also faces a slew of federal charges, including wire fraud, money laundering, and identity theft. He has pleaded not guilty to those charges. Just seconds ago, we heard the gavel, which means this vote is official, and it looks like George Santos has been expelled. Let's listen into House Speaker Johnson.
That's it.
Garrett Hake live on Capitol Hill. Garrett?
Well, Joe, a Congress that has had several historic moments now records another, as you said, just the 6th member ever expelled from the House, the first time in decades, and the first member ever expelled who was neither a member of the Confederacy or himself a convicted felon. But Santos, as you said, faced 23 federal criminal charges and perhaps the final nail in his political coffin, that damning ethics report that came out before Thanksgiving, in which a bipartisan committee found that he had been, in their words, blatantly stealing from his own campaign. Now, this is the 3rd attempt to expel Santos, and the first to be successful, as you said, with a 2/3 majority vote here. It was, frankly, his Republican colleagues who ultimately decided they were fed up with the congressman from Long Island, who had really stopped defending himself against the particular allegations against him about his conduct, and in recent days largely been making an argument based on precedent, that the House didn't want to, for the first time, throw someone out who had not been convicted of anything. That argument apparently unsatisfactory for all Democrats, save one, I believe, on the final vote count, and more than 100 of his Republican colleagues who found him to be an embarrassing distraction from the work they're trying to do with their slim majority, which, Joe, will now get slimmer. Santos is out today. His staff will stay on under the direction of the House clerk to continue work on constituent services, and it'll be up for the governor of New York to set a special election to replace him, a special election in a district that Joe Biden carried in 2020 that should be extremely competitive as we go into the federal election year of 2024.
So, Garrett, my understanding was 2/3 of Congress today. It would have been 283 votes. It ended up being 311 to 114. Santos put his winter coat on when the vote happened and then walked off of the floor. This is incredible because of just how tight the margins are in Congress. Walk us through, you alluded to it here, what the next process is, how quickly it will be before we know who's going to replace him.
Yeah, it was interesting also because House Republican leadership were among those who backed George Santos today. From the Speaker on down, the top 4 members on the House Republican side all voted against the expulsion here. If they had gone the other way, you might have seen the total be much higher. But again, this shrinks the Republican edge in the House by essentially a half seat, is a good way to think about it for now. They lose who had been a fairly reliable vote for the Republican agenda thus far. The governor has 10 days to set a date for the special election, which would likely come at some point in the spring. If a Democrat picks up that seat, it shrinks the margin still further. House Republicans would have, depending on attendance, about a 3-vote margin to work with. Incredibly tight, incredibly difficult as they still try to sort out things like how to fund the government long term, something that they'll have to do in January and in February.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.